Getting to know the main paleontological temperature methods. Using different paleontological methods to look at temperatures from the past gives us important information about climate change and the biology of organisms that are no longer alive. Paleontologists employ various methodologies to reconstruct historical temperatures, aiding in the comprehension of ancient climates and the physiological states of extinct species. Isotopic analysis and the study of fossilized remains are two common ways that these methods work. Researchers can make their temperature reconstructions more accurate by using a multi-proxy approach. This will help them learn more about the history of Earth's climate, important ways to rebuild temperature, analysis of oxygen isotopes, oxygen isotope ratios. A basic method is to look at the ratios of oxygen 18 and oxygen 16 isotopes in the carbonate shells of marine microorganisms. This method shows how warm or cold the ocean was in the past, because colder waters tend to hold heavier isotopes. What this means for climate research: scientists can figure out what the ocean was like in the past by looking at these ratios and sediment cores. This gives them an idea of what the climate was like over long periods of time. Thermometry with clumped isotopes. Understanding clumping. Clumped isotope thermometry looks at how often heavy isotopes like carbon-13 and oxygen-18 bond together in bioapatite, which is the mineral that makes up fossil bones and teeth. Temperature correlation. This method is very useful because it lets scientists figure out the exact body temperature of animals that are no longer alive. Isotopic clumping is less likely to happen when temperatures are higher, which shows a direct link between temperature and isotopic composition. Foraminifera's MgCa ratios. Proxy for sea surface temperatures, the ratio of magnesium to calcium in foraminifera shells is another way to figure out what the sea surface temperatures were like in the past. Ecological insights. This method not only helps us figure out what the temperature was like in the past, but it also gives us information about how ancient marine environments were. Looking at ice cores. Methods for analyzing ice cores. Air bubbles trapped. Ice cores from polar regions have air bubbles trapped inside them that keep the conditions in the atmosphere from long ago. Isotope composition. Scientists can figure out how the climate has changed over thousands of years by looking at the isotopic makeup of these bubbles. This lets them see how temperatures and weather patterns have changed in different parts of the world. What ice core data means. Long-term climate records. Ice core data give us important long-term records of how the climate has changed over time. This helps us understand how the climate is changing now and how it changes naturally. Organic geochemistry and proxies for temperature. Alkanones as signs of temperature. Organic compounds. Alkanones are organic compounds that some types of algae make. Their presence in marine sediments can tell us about the temperatures of the sea surface in the past. Biological and environmental interactions. This approach emphasizes the relationship between biological processes and environmental conditions, enhancing our comprehension of marine ecosystems' responses to climatic variations. Histology and growth patterns of bones. Looking at the bones of dinosaurs. Growth rings, like tree rings. Scientists can study growth rings in dinosaur bones, figure out how fast they grew, and what their metabolic temperatures were. When combined with isotopic data, bone histology helps us understand the life history and environmental adaptation of extinct species in more detail. In conclusion, the different techniques used in paleontological temperature reconstruction, such as oxygen isotope analysis, clumped isotope thermometry, MgCa ratios, ice core analysis, organic geochemistry, and bone histology, all help us learn more about ancient climates and the biology of organisms that are no longer alive. By using a multi-proxy approach, researchers can make their reconstructions more accurate. This helps us understand the history of Earth's climate and how life has changed over time. This combined method not only tells us about the weather in the past, but it is also an important point of reference for understanding how the weather is changing now and in the future.